When I walked down there that day with you, I didn't feel as if I could place people that I knew back into those houses. They seemed hollow to me, they seemed different. Of course they were changed in many ways, and they were much older. And I couldn't imagine families doing what they had done that I remember.
People and places and they're just not there anymore. It was a little disorienting, but on the other hand, it was good to take the walk, and some of the changes were for the better, some were not so good.
It says Selkirk and Maine, and the Royal Bank, the old Royal Bank building is the corner, and the market used to be just a half a block over to the south here of the credit union, and that was a farmer's market, and thousands of people used to come there every week to buy their fresh produce and chickens, and they used to go home on the streetcar carrying live chickens and you know, all kinds of potatoes and anything that was vegetable they used to purchase there.
And fish.
And fish.
And fish.
Fresh fish.
Nice, fresh, floppy fish.
This used to be the Jewish Post when we were kids, and it was a very busy place. And I think
Warkoff and Saphir.
What did they do?
It was leather. They used to work with leather.
Leather factory. It used to be Shapiro's
Shapiro's photography.
Photography, and he used to take pictures of everybody in the North End.
And Shapiro's was here, and Klein Photographer was across the street on that side.
Yeah, on the next one. One time there used to be two blacksmith shops, one on this side and one on that side, opposite each other.
Mm-hmm.
And while we get at Maine and Selkirk, there used to be a horse trough on the east side of the street.
Is that right?
At the curb, big red cast iron bowl that used to have water for horses.
How was it fed?
It was fed from the system, like.
Really?
Yeah, I used to fill up.
It was the Hebrew Sick Benefit Association.
Yeah.
That's right. Originally, it was the Queen's Theatre. Originally, the Queen's Theatre.
And what year did it change?
Somewhere between 28 and 30, I can't remember exactly. The original Hebrew Sick was in the big Tomatara building downstairs.
Charles at Florida.
Okay.
This place, I remember coming here with my mother and father for a Jewish theater.
When it was the Queen's.
When it was the Queen's Theatre. And Molly Pekin and Maurice Schwartz and all the famous New York actors used to come.
This and the large Tomatara had most of the Jewish functions. The small Tomatara used to do the same thing. Parents' school at that time, the top of the Israelite Press used to be a Jewish hall as well. And the community was quite well serviced by large locations for people to gather.
And here we're inside the Hebrew Sick here. And here we are in the big hall, the site of lots of parties that I remember as a kid.
Zayda had a birthday and they needed a fundraiser. They made a birthday party for her.
Look at this beautiful chest.
That's an original.
And Baba and my mother used to bake for weddings, cook for weddings. They used to be downstairs and washing dishes and stuff and delivering stuff, you know, in this building too. I remember this when the cops were here.
They used to play cards, and Papa used to play hearts and whist. Sometimes poker, and if you won 25 cents, boy, that was a good game.
25 cents is a lot of money.
That was a good game.
And
the library was upstairs.
It's a mural of the Gunn brothers. Their bakery. Little filming inside of Gunn's bakery.
Sure.
Okay, introduce yourself and tell me about your bakery.
I am Clive Gunn,
Okay.
one of the owners of Gunn's Bakery.
Okay, so give me some information.
We've been here since 1937,
That's right.
and I've been here probably since 1938. My mom and dad started the business in 1937, and now my brother and myself are the proprietors. And we work hard to make all these lovely things that you see in front of you.
And you've gone from how many people to how many people in this bakery?
You've been working.
Yeah.
Well, I think we started off with about 4 or 5. Now we have about 8.
Yeah.
It makes me sad to look at the fronts of these places now. They're empty, and when in fact everybody used to live here and it was so dynamic. Eva used to have a little sandwich shop in here, Eva Kirk.
Yeah.
The shop was there maybe 20 years before I got there.
What, so,
And when the war came, I lost track. It just went out of business. It wasn't viable anymore. But there's a place on the corner where it says Suitors there. That brown building is where they used to have the upholstery company. And I used to work there as an apprentice. And they gave me $2 a month. And I worked there a couple of months, enough to earn a hammer, a magnetic hammer, and scissors.
Oy.
And it was just after I'd had my appendix out, and we used to carry the frames from the downstairs cellar to the 3rd floor to do the upholstery, initial upholstery on the Chesterfields. We used to take horsehair and sometimes Excelsior even, and we used to make the arms and put burlap over top of it. And that's where I learned to put the nails in my mouth so that I could spit them out with the head coming out first, so it hit the magnet. The magnet would carry the nail, and I could hold 2 hands at one hand at what I was doing, and one hand to hammer it. You know? And after I did that for a couple of months, I was glad that I stopped. The nails tasted awful. They were always oiled with something. Worked there 20 years, 25 years. And the $2 that I got for the hammer, and the $2 I got for the scissors, was paid to me by the guy I was supposed to be helping as an apprentice.
Oh.
He was teaching me the trade, and he's the guy that paid me the $2 each time. And it was very unusual. Or maybe it was usual for the time, but it was an experience I've never forgotten. I still know how to put arms together. And tie springs. Oh yes, tying springs is important.
Okay.
The swimming pool it was an indoor swimming pool and an outdoor swimming pool.
On Pritchard and Charles?
On Pritchard and Charles, yeah.
And so they had it, so you could use it winter and summer.
Oh yeah, yeah. There were 2 Tomatoiras. There was this one, the big Tomatoira, and there was a little Tomatoira on Magnus and Andrews. They were both schools, and this one also had a banquet hall. Auntie Jenny and Max were married here. There were a lot of weddings. And the choir from the Tomatoira School that Mr. Brownstone conducted was absolutely wonderful. He had those kids, a kid that could never sing a note, sang beautifully when he conducted. Mm-hmm. They really had a wonderful, wonderful reputation. And the Hebrew Sick started there in the basement, and it started in 1906. Anyway, Zayda was one of the founding members in 1906, and that's where they started. Before they moved to the Hebrew Sick, The last meeting they had there was a very, very stormy one, and I was listening to it on the other side of the window. The windows were wide open, and my father was pleading with the members, please, we have got to bring the young people in. We have got to have young men in. We're getting older. The society won't exist if once we're all gone. But they didn't. So that's when the Young Men's Hebrew Association was formed, and Uncle Morris was one of the members there. Cubit Friedman, Meyer Goldberg.
Berlin used to have a plumbing shop here.
Izzy Berlin was one of the boys. In fact, Izzy Berlin was killed overseas, wasn't he?
One of them was.
I think it was Izzy.
I was a helper, and I delivered papers from Salter all the way to Main Street and then back on the other side. And the first time they gave me a list that started off with the numbers that had to do with 1, 2, 3 until it was built up to whatever it is at Salter. And I went up here first to deliver the papers, and they gave me help because it took forever to get the papers. I walked the whole street before I realized that I could start at any side of the list, which just shows you how sharp I was.
Which paper did you do?
Tribune, of course. There was no other paper.
No?
Free Press wasn't the same.
There's no other paper but the Tribune.
And what was the price of a paper, and how much did you...
5 cents.
And did you collect on alternate days?
I had to collect
Alternate weeks?
some of the money. The guy didn't used to, he didn't used to give me the, you had to have a book with little tickets, you know.
Yeah.
So that he usually mostly collected his own.
And how much did you get out of it?
I don't know, I guess 50 cents a week or something.
How many? Yes, for how many?
I didn't get much money, and it was always a job to do after school.
How old were you?
I guess I was 11 or 12.
You know where the used to be on Selkirk Avenue, just off McGregor, right next to where the Legion, the old Legion is on Selkirk and McGregor, right next door. Used to be Liberty Studios. There, the guy that ran it then, in fact it was a house with a studio in front. But he's the one that took the picture of Shelley and me when she was 5 on her 5th birthday.
The Holy Ghost School. We're here at the Holy Ghost School, and that was here, eh?
Yeah, but not this building.
No? How big was the school?
It was,
It was a lot smaller.
It was a lot smaller. It was more church-like than the building you see now.
Okay.
And we used to have a beer parlor downstairs, club.
Oh, did they?
Well, I delivered paper there, so I know. Baba used to say, "Since Boże, durch God." So there's the words in their language. They get Shkola, which is school, and Sweer Ducha.
Yeah.
That's the Holy Spirit.
Yeah. So, did you speak Ukrainian?
My mother usually mixed up Polish and Ukrainian and German, and it was a language that she used and was effective. I don't know how she used it.
It was a North End language because they all spoke Polish, Ukrainian, German, and they all understood each other.
My Zeta used to speak Ukrainian. And I'm sure that my grandfather on my father's side used to speak Ukrainian.
And
my father used some too. He could understand lots of the Ukrainian. I don't know that he spoke it.
So people mix the languages up all the time to each other?
He didn't mix as much as my mother did. My mother used to mix them really good.
And Yiddish too?
Well, of course.
And her parents?
Only
no, Baba only spoke Jewish that I could remember on my mother's side. My grandfather, who worked in the city of Winnipeg cleaning streets, used to speak Ukrainian to the people who were neighbors of ours who were Ukrainian and used to use only one language.
But did he speak Yiddish? What did he speak to you?
Yiddish.
Yeah.
When the peddlers used to come around and yelling "Kakaruja," "Krut," you know,
Paparuja, Kakaruja,
"Kartofle," all the peddlers, all the farmers with their wares, and "Barabolya," "Kartofle." But the farmers were usually, Some of them were Yiddish, some of them were Ukrainian, but the languages, everybody understood what everybody was saying to each other. Oh, we're missing Mrs. What's his name? Not Taraska. Mrs. Shea's boyfriend. You know, Mrs. Shea from the brewery. Her boyfriend lived.
This is Dr. Zaidman's house. So where is this boyfriend live?
Well, he lived over there. So Mrs. Shea lived on O'Meara.
Oh, I see.
Yes. But the O'Shea's had a very good-sized brewery, and apparently they made a very nice beer.
Yeah.
Dr. Zaidman had his office in the back.
Right. There was a separate entrance, right?
Yeah.
Ideal Electric. And it's been here since...
Forever.
When we were kids, it was
we were
here.
When we were kids, and I delivered papers here. I used to go up into this building here, that white one. Mitchell's Meat Market. Look, the guy's name's still on there. I used to be there.
And that was a kosher meat market.
Oh, yeah.
The streetcars were down the middle. There's two streetcar lines down the middle. What was the numbers of the streetcars? 90 and
96.
90 and 96 used to run up and down Selkirk Avenue. One would go all the way to Arlington, the other would turn around.
96 would go down to Phillips. Well, it would go a little past Parr. I don't know if it ended at McPhillips, but that was 96.
Yeah.
And number 90 used to turn down on McGregor.
It would be McGregor North.
And then on North Main, you had the 26 and the 22.
And what was the cost of a streetcar ticket?
I still have one in my jewelry box. I think it was 5 cents.
Okay.
And Mom and I used to walk from Flora Avenue across the Salter Street Bridge, which was a wooden sidewalk, and we'd walk to Eaton's and have apple pie and ice cream and walk home and save the nickel.
Rosny's used to have a store
Deli.
here.
Groceries and
deli. Delicatessen.
Here's a picture of the Royal Bank, the former Royal Bank, which is now Chachi's Pawn Shop. And this is where Grozny's grocery was in Delhi. The architecture is still pretty interesting.
The living papers early in the morning used to come out in the morning edition.
What year? What year?
I think it was 36, 35. And there's a big swastika up here on the corner on the Cranston window.
And Donner's Drugs?
Yep, on Donner's Drugs.
So what happened? Like, what was
They took it off. It was very frightening. I couldn't believe that it was here. It was one of the first manifest signs of Nazi growth, and in Winnipeg it was quite strong.
So this was Perth's? This was Portnoy's?
This was Portnoy's. Yeah.
419, used to be Perth.
They had the shop behind here, the
dry cleaning and everything was, the little front. That was the office, or the counter, and that's where the dry cleaning was.
And then it became the donut shop after, right?
After that.
And this is the house that I first remember when I lived on Selkirk Avenue. In fact, I think my first memory must be here because I remember the backyard of it better than I do the front. I remember that there was a big cave-in after a rainstorm, and the ground fell in because they had been digging there. And Max Sokolov and my father put in a furnace in his house. It was in a dugout cellar. So there was a trapdoor in the floor, and I remember them working downstairs putting the furnace in, out of a furnace.
A coal-fired?
Yeah, like in other words, they took out the stove that was in the middle of the house, and they put the furnace downstairs.
Ooh.
And behind here was where Baba and Zayda Sittner used to live, in Jenny.
Behind the White House restaurant?
Yeah, behind the White House restaurant. A man by the name of Duma, I think it was, owned the house, owned this building. And my mother had to go to the small claims court to reclaim their monthly security deposit because they wouldn't give it up. He said there was too much damage to the place with 2 people living in it. My aunt, there were no kids or anything. So she went to the Broadway to the law courts and argued a case to get the money back, and he was obliged to give it back to them. And I remember going on a streetcar on Broadway with her. I remember a little record shop, a metal shop and a record shop here. Champs used to have a big house here. You know, it must be part of the same one there. Yeah, I think that's part of the same house. They just put new clapboard on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got the stairs. Yeah, it's still part of the same house.
And Hanya's was next door.
Yeah. Here's Worthlop Star Grocery. Worthlop Star Grocery. This was the
There.
Grushko's,
And Grushko
that's
was
Blackstone
next door.
and Kanofsky.
Right on the
There
corner.
used to be a barn behind that building there that says Young's there, Kanofsky's. There used to be a little barn there. And everybody had a barn in those days. And a guy was hanging, and then my father lifted him up while they cut him down. And I went with him around the back.
How old were you?
Just a kid. I was
5, 10?
maybe 5.
Yeah.
Just in my memory, that's all.
Yeah.
On the corner was a gas station. I think it was an Esso station, but I'm not sure. Anyway, it was a gas station, and then there was a little bit of a lane, and Dr. Novak, George Novak, and his family lived here.
Okay, so that's just approaching the corner with Powers here.
426 was Eva's store, where that empty lot was there. 426.
Oh, that's where Aunt Eva had her
Eva's-
store?
The first sandwich store. That's where her husband dropped dead in that place.
Oh my. And that was 1931?
1929. Same year as Shalamas was born, same year as Paul was born.
It was a little barn for the horse, and
He used to give me money for helping him put ice up in the blocks, in the ice boxes. He'd go around to different little blocks where people wanted his milk, and then he'd also sell him a chunk of ice, which I used to help him haul up from the back of the rig. He used to keep the ice in the back of the rig, like, you know.
How big was the ice?
big block.
You know, for a block for an ice box was about like this. That'd be about,
About
50,
12 by 12.
about 50-cent piece or something, you know.
And so it was 50 cents for that?
You bought a piece and they charged you by the piece. You could buy 10 cents worth.
Yeah, you could buy anything. Like he'd give you a piece of his estimate.
And you got paid what for that?
He give me a dime at the end of the day. I used to take the horse was next to Hirschfield's in the back. There was a little barn. He used to keep the horse in the back there.
And Hirschfield's was where on?
Right next door.
On Flora.
Okay, so you
next to Andrews.
You'd take
next to Powers. I mean.
You'd take the horse over there and clean it up, or what did you?
He just used to put it in a stall. Take the harness off it.
Take off the feed bag.
You know, the feed bag.
Because every horse walked around with a feed bag.
Yeah.
We're on Powers in Selkirk.
Powers in Selkirk, and where Selkirk Supermarket is now used to be Brody's Dress Shop.
Okay.
And I worked there for 3 years. They were the most wonderful people. You were part of their family when you worked with them.
Before that, it was St. Paul's College, and where they had the Y swimming and all those things that kids used to like.
And that's where my brother Morris was part of the basketball team. And they were Winnipeg champions 4 years in a row. Clifford's used to come all the way out. The whole building was Clifford's, and where the family restaurant is was also part of Clifford's. And here was Shore's Glass. And Polly and Morris, Shore's father, had this place. Polly went into the Air Force in the women's division during the war. Polly and Edna Porter.
483 is where Mittelmans were.
Cloak manufacturers.
Clothing manufacturers.
There was Mittelmans, there was Stalls. Also, right next to the Palace Theater was Deb's Millinery, and that's where I also worked.
Oretzky's was right.
was right there where the empty lot is now.
Oretzky's was just
The Oretzky department store and the fashion shoe shop.
the fashion shoe shop. Who owned Oretzky's?
Harris and Louis Oretzky.
Okay, so the Palace Theater, you want to talk about that?
Oh, Harriet, that was the most wonderful thing. Boy, you took your lunch and your supper in a paper bag, and you sat there and you ate corned beef sandwiches or wurst sandwiches, and you watched a double movie, and then they had
They
a
give you a
little bit
lap
of,
if you want.
and they, and sometimes they would even have a little vaudeville act on the stage. but not too often. The vaudeville act used to be at the Beacon Theatre on Main
Okay.
Street,
512.
where the museum is now.
There.
Yeah.
512, where the post office was. And that's where my father and Becky Crivichet's father, what was his name, Cunyan, and old man Mark, who was a butcher, they set up a butcher shop there.
Where did they get their meat from?
They bought meat from the wholesalers, and they
And ran into trouble with the Kahila.
Yeah, they ran into trouble with the Kahila. The guys in the Kahila said they weren't kosher enough.
Okay, who koshered their meat for them?
Well, they bought it from a kosher meat distributor.
Oh,
But the Kahila didn't like it because they were cutting into the business of other butchers, they said, because they were selling it at reasonable...
The Kahila also was not getting their take.
Yeah, they weren't getting their part of the take. And they let them operate all that 1 year when they closed them down.
was it a decent, did they make a decent living out of it?
They didn't try to make a profit, they tried to make it operate.
Yeah,
And anybody could buy meat there.
yeah,
They just didn't sell it to kosher people, they sold it to everybody that wanted it.
yeah. So was
At
it
least-
popular? Did it have many customers?
Yeah, shit. That was the trouble. They were so successful, everybody else was complaining. They carried
Kids ate.
bundles of meat from here all the way to Boyd Avenue or to Mountain and those places. And they didn't ever give me money enough for a bicycle. They always give me about 50 cents a parcel or something. So my arms used to be full of meat and I'd carry it for blocks.
Next door to the palace was the Empire Drug, Mr. Doherty's drugstore.
Right.
And the billiards used to be next door.
That was the Woolworths when I was a
Where
kid
it's
still.
blocked off
Yeah.
out, that used to be Woolworths.
Right.
And next to that was Misha Pollock.
What was in his store?
Oh, everything. This was Siegel's bakery shop.
Siegel's Bakery. The old man Siegel was kind of a nice guy. He loved kids.
Yeah.
And he used to come out on a Sunday morning with a towel and he was shaving and everything, you know. And he'd come out, he lived on Floor Avenue next to us, on Floor Avenue. And he would promise us all horses. Well, I would say, I'd like a spotted one. And another guy would say, I'd like a brown one. Another guy would say, I want the gray, silver one. And he would promise us all horses. And what kind of saddle do you like? And how high do you want it to be? A big horse, a small horse? He would lead us on for hours and feed us all those kind of promises. Almost at the corner was Jewel grocery shop.
It used to be
Jewel used to be a chain like Safeway. And,
Oh, okay.
And they moved further down because that's where my cousin Rosie used to work.
Okay.
anyway,
And then it was Schulman's grocery store.
and after Schulman was
Soloway.
Soloway.
Yeah, I remember Soloway's. Yeah. Okay. And Soloway's, was that a chain too?
No.
Okay.
Next to the Merchant's Hotel, Jack, I told you that the old man Steinman used to live in the back. There was a suite.
And he was the owner.
He was the owner,
Yeah.
Robert Steinman. And then the guests, Jack guests, had a barber shop about one column up there. There used to be a hole in the wall there. And next to the Merchants was Taylor's Sandwich Shop, or whatever they call it. They used to have Taylor's ice cream. And then
Hooded garments. They made coats and suits.
Burbage was also a furrier.
Do you want to mention about the Merchants Hotel? About Bob and your
Well,
mom?
at the top used to be a hall. And that's where Bob and my mother and my father celebrated their wedding.
Okay, so any more about the Merchants? Like what used to go on there?
Well, Eddie and I were friends, and he had many brothers and sisters. And in the bottom, High Schiffer used to have a gym. Old man Steinman gave him permission to use the cellar part as a gym, one of the first gyms in the North End. And High Schiffer was Shirley's cousin.
Okay, and when there were crap games here, or
Behind Taylor's sandwich
Behind
shop.
Taylor. Oh yeah.
where? Okay, so
And that's where Stanley's Ed used to run the games.
Yeah, he used to run his games out of there and sometimes out of the White House too.
yeah.
Because,
Metro Seminick used to be one of his number one lieutenants.
And they all dressed like Damon Runyon characters.
Oh, it was Damon Runyon.
You know, the beautiful felt pearl gray hats, gray
was.
striped suits, you know,
My,
with large stripes in them, you know, black shoes.
Meyer used to come to the White House with his pearl ring and beautiful black striped suit, sparkling white shirt with cufflinks, and a tie pin, and a gorgeous tie, and spats on beautifully polished shoes. And he'd stand there, and he'd twirl his cane, or his chain a little bit, twirl it, and then suddenly he would see a car drive by slowly, and he would saunter across the street. I'm ready.
The sign of affluence was these things that we're talking about. When the guy dressed like that, you knew that he was a winner. In other words, he had $17 in his pocket or something. That was a lot of money in those days.
And Meyer used to look like the heartthrob of the movies of that day. Richard Ricardo, or
Slick
whatever.
black hair.
Oh, patent leather hair.
Patent leather hair.
And he was handsome, swarthy complexion. He was so handsome. My God, the girls used to go. Lazansky's moved in. There were 12 kids in that family. And boy, did Mrs. Lazansky make donuts. Oh, they were wonderful. Jeannie and I, even now when we bump into each other downtown, we still laugh at the stupidity. Because at Pesach time, Jean wouldn't call for me to go to school because her mother told her that at Passover, Jews ate matzahs. And matzahs were made with the blood of Jesus Christ.
Say with George Michelle, we wouldn't play with me at Easter time when we lived on Florida.
But after Pesach, Jeannie and I went to school together again, every day, twice a day. And then it became Walter's Meat Market. Walter had, I don't remember what his last name was, but he had a butcher shop here. He used to sell horse meat during the war. Where Walter had his the smokehouse, because he used to smoke his own sausages.
So here's where Baba and Zayda's house was, where your house was. Here's where the chicken coop and the barn were. Garage, yeah.
It was a double garage, and it had the Plymouth and the Essex.
Yeah.
And the Essex was for Sunday, and only when my brother came home.
531, Isaac Merkel.
Mm-hmm.
The society was quite regulated. It wasn't sort of uncontrolled. Families, ethnic families, had always had an eye on you. Doesn't matter which street you were on. If you did something wrong, somebody who was of your ethnic background would tell your mother. And that people knew each other. And similarly with other ethnic groups, they had a kind of control feature as well. And they didn't like their kids doing things beyond the norm, and hoped that they would all behave and certainly not get into trouble. But it was a kind of society where there was intermingling in spite of the fact that there was separation. People had their children played together or went to public school together. There was people who sent their kids only to public schools and private schools, and they were somewhat more aloof. But in general, kids intermingled, even if their parents might not have. But then, in the sense that there was friendly neighborhoods, these people used to talk to each other in many languages.
Here on the corner, every Saturday night, used to be the Salvation Army. They come around 10 o'clock in the evening and stay for about 15-20 minutes. All the kids in the neighborhood would gather around and sing with them. It was Yossa Glass's grocery store.
Those small houses have been there, the same ones, right?
Yeah, they were green then. Maureen's mother lived there.
Yeah, that's right.
Sherman.
Perlmutter.
But that used to be Yossa Glass's grocery store, and then it was Kirkin's, and then it was Zlotnikov, and after Zlotnikov it was Kirkin, and then it was Buchhalter.
I remember walking with my mother when we moved from Selkirk Avenue onto Flora Avenue. She was walking with myself and Mamie and Janet and Phyllis, his little kid, and we walked onto the street off of Powers and turned right to head to 523 Flora, and the trees were so impressive for me. We had come off a street where there were very few trees, and the trees were so beautifully green, and the grasses and the weeds and everything else, they looked so refreshingly green that I was amazed by the color and the sort of welcoming feeling that I felt as a kid.
Markusoff was the next. And Markusoff, yeah, was further down. It was a duplex. I was born at 531 in the front bedroom.
Charlie Carhouse, your mother's a Hungarian.
Oh yeah, they went back to Hungary just as the war started. They went back to Hungary. This is Yakovich when she would flick the chickens. She would save the down.
Yeah.
So the pillows that I have at home, the ones that I just finished fixing up, are the down pillows, are the down feathers from our own chickens. Mama used to make me carry the chicken to Mr. Brickman, and I hated the damn bird, so I'd always carry it with its head at the back.
That's not why. We used to put the head at the back so the pooper could be this way, so you wouldn't get covered.
I hated the damn bird.
That's Zeta Sam Sittner, my mother's father, 481, Flora. When I learned about circuits, was to put a bell ringer between this house and this house so that we could call Jenny to the phone when somebody called her. So I just pressed the button and it went across, and she came in because she knew somebody was calling on the phone.
Oh, is that right?
Well, if I could shed a tear I would because of the changes here, but basically the houses that we remember are changed. They were very small. Like that house there used to have all of its kids. 523, all the kids lived in there. Mamie and Janet and myself and Penny and Jackie and Phyllis, all of us.
Is there an upstairs on it?
There's just one floor.
Oh, there's just one.
And 5 rooms in it.
The times are different. The war changed everything. And we moved on.